Welcome to a tutorial in IronCAD on Toby's practice model labeled sliding tabbed sheet metal bracket. So we'll design this in IronCAD sheet metal using stock bends and some cutouts. And we'll show you how we're going to do this with our handles to basically do some of this overall sizing information here. So notice they don't give us the length of these elements, they just basically give us some overall dimensions for these and offsets from the bottom edge for our location of our tab. So we'll go ahead and show you how to do this, and we'll also do some cross-section editing for our little tab here at the top. So we'll go ahead and hop over to IronCAD to show you how this is done. So we'll start in IronCAD, and a couple things here to access our sheet metal. You can either go to our starter catalog and click on the sheet metal folder, or go to more catalogs and access it here from the sheet metal catalog that's open. So we'll go into the starter menu, just double click on this to expand it, or you can drag out the folder to drop elements out as well. But we'll go ahead and expand it so we can see it, and we'll drop all the stock, and we're just going to hit OK because we don't really care what stock we're using. We're going to change that on the part properties because we're going to set that to 3mm thickness and a 3mm radius, bend radius on that as well. So we'll go ahead and start with that information there. And we know the overall width of this is 140, so we'll go ahead and set that to 140, and the height of this guy is 125 for that opposite handle there. So that kind of gives us our starting point for our sheet metal. Next, we'll just go ahead and drop a bend shape on here, and we know its overall length on this is actually 95, so we'll go ahead and type in a 95 for that handle. And we know the distance from this bottom edge, as we mentioned before, is actually set to a specific length. So we're just going to hit edit distance from a point, and we're going to set that to 90. See, actually that is 58 from that one. Let's see, let's double check that. Yeah, 58 for that value there. So we'll set that 58 units from that bottom edge. So now that we have this in place, we want to drop the next bend on, and we're going to use an out bend so we can maintain this exact height. So an in bend, we'll put it on the inside of our stock. The out bend, we'll put it on the outside edge of the stock. So we're going to use an out bend and drag and drop it on here to maintain our height. And in this case, we've got it in the right location. We need to set this distance handle here. So what we know is this actual handle, when it's mirrored to the opposite side, has an overall unit length. So we're just going to set a distance from the midpoint of this. We can just right click on this again, say add a distance from point. Before we do this one, this is the distance we want to set, but it's not in the current location because we also have to set the outside distance for this bend. So what we want to do is move this bend out to get the exact distance to be 80mm from this edge. To do that, you can use the actual sheet metal bend handle. So there's actually a feature handle that gives you access for the radius, the angles, your length handles and things like that, but you also have a stock handle that can do the same thing. It can modify these. So in our case, we want to edit the distance from this guy to the point, which is the midpoint here, and we know that has to be 80mm because it's going to be 160 total in the distance. So now we can come up to this handle, get its value again, same thing, edit distance from point. We'll select that midpoint there again, and this one, in this case, it's going to be 115, so it's 57.5 is the half distance of that. Next, we want to add some cutouts to this, so let's go ahead and go to our custom profile to do this. We'll just drop that right on the center there, and it's got to have a value of 20mm of that hole, and we're going to use the tribal to make some copies of this, and we're just going to right click and drag over to the opposite side and make a link of that. And it has to be a value of 31.5, and we want to create another one in the opposite direction or the reverse direction there, and hit OK, so we can create that one as well. So that gives us our overall shape there. And now we want to do a mirror feature of this. So we can do this in the command. IronCAD has both what we call object or action object. So you click the action, then you click your object that you're going to work on, or you can do object action. So meaning I can select all the features that I want. I can do it from the scene, or I can go into our scene browser and I can just hold my shift key and select all these features here and do our mirror feature, which will maintain those as our feature. I just need to define my plane, which is that midpoint. That will give us our overall mirrored object there. So now that I have that, I can now select down, and just to verify, if I select these two edges here, we'll see down at the bottom that's a total distance of 160, and if we do the inside edges here, we'll see that's got a value of 115 inside of there. So one thing I didn't do on here before that mirror, so I'll just go ahead and just do another mirror here, but we do need to add this shape here, which is a slot feature here, and we're just going to use the tribal again, orient it the right direction that we want. I'm just going to drag that to align to this edge, inside of here, and then when we select our feature, we can go to this little handle here and say tooling features. Sorry, let's zoom in so you can see this better. So you got these two handles here. These will go through the sizes that are available if you click on them, but you can also right click on them and go to tooling properties. So these are what the arrows will filter through if you wanted to select through various ones that you save, or you can create custom ones inside of here. In our case, we know this has a 6mm width, and we know it needs to be 61 because it's from center to center. It needs to be 55, so we just add the radius as well, so we'll get a 61 total length for that inside of there. So now we've got that in place. We need to position these in the correct location. So in this case, they do have a value of 131 from center to center on that. So we need to make sure that we are in the right location. Let me see if there's one other dimension on that. Hold on one sec. Okay, so yeah, they don't give us another dimension on that, so we'll just use the tri-ball again to position it in the correct location here. So let's select our feature, select on our tri-ball to turn it on, and what we'll do is just do the same thing that we did before. We'll just do edit distance from point along that axis, and we know it needs to be 131 divided by 2, so half that value there. So that's in the right location. Now we can just use the tri-ball to mirror this to the other side, so we're just going to move that over to our center, and we can just do a mirror link to the other side. So now we've got those slot features there as well. All right, next we want to edit this cross section here of our stock to get our angles on that. So you can select to this, right click and say edit cross section, or you can just select to a stock and hit Alt E. It's the same thing that will take you into the cross section. In our case, we want to look at the other side, so let's just flip that over to the other side here. And now we can draw a line, so we'll just go to our S key, which bring up our commands for our sketch, and we're just going to do a line, and we're going to go from that point there, which we want to get that actual location there, and we're going to draw this up, and we're going to right click, and we're going to set that slope at 115 for that one, and then we'll come over and do the same thing to the other side. In this case, it needs to be a slope of 65 in the other direction. So basically what that will give us our total distance if you do it in a smart dimension just to measure it from between these two. That'll give you the distance of 50 degrees for the angle in there. Next we'll go ahead and do a trim. So we can bring up our S key again, hit our trim command. Inside of here we'll just trim these off. We don't need that geometry, and we want to go ahead and select these and do a fillet, and we can access it at the ribbon bar or that S key again. We're going to left click and then right click to place the value. In our case, it's going to be 29 for the radius. And we'll finish that. So that gives us our shape for our stock. Next, we're going to draw our shape here on for our cutout or our pop-up here. In our case, we'll just go ahead and drop a custom profile out here, and we know its diameter is going to be 60 because it gives us a radius of 30. And we also know the distance for this guy is actually a distance from that bottom edge. So we'll say edit distance from point. Down here, we know that it needs to be 57 millimeters from that bottom edge from there. So now that we've got that hole in the right location, we can do an Alt E to edit the cross section. Again, we want to draw it in this direction up here, so we're going to do a rectangle in this case. So we'll go ahead and hit this point here, move over, and I'm going to hold down and get until I get this little yellow dot there, so I can snap to that edge reference and pull it up however height that I want and just place that. So now I'm going to go ahead and do a smart dimension from our edge to our bottom edge here, and we know that dimension needs to be 13 millimeters. So we're going to go ahead and type in 13, I believe it's 13, yeah, 13 millimeters for that edge. And now that we've got that in the right location, we can now do our, we know in this case, it's from the center point of these bottom arcs here. So what we're going to do is just draw a 2-point circle. So if we go to our circles here, we can see we have different ones, and we have one that's a 2-point. And we're just going to select our outer point and move along the line here, and we're just going to right click and set that to 2 for that radius, and do the same for the other side. Move along that line, set the value 2. We've got those created. And now we can just trim off the extra geometry that we don't need, which is this information here, to create that shape. So that gives us our overall shape of this model. We don't need this extra line here or that arc there, so we'll just go ahead and keep trimming those while I run the trim command and hit finish to create that shape. So that gives us our cutout. Now we're just going ahead and add our bend to this. So we'll go back up to our bends, drag and drop that onto our model here. And in this case, we know the height of this edge is going to be a certain distance from the bottom of this. Again, we can use those handles to get that distance from a point, in this case this bottom edge, and we need to set that to 96 from there. So we've got that there. The other thing that we know is this inside face needs to be 18 millimeters from this edge. And we know this is a 3 millimeter thickness blend or bend here, so we can go ahead and use some math here to get this. So we're going to do the same thing with these handles. We can do an edit distance from point from here, and we know it's certain at 19, so it needs to be actually 21 to account for the thickness. We'll set that off there. So we just put a smart dimension if you want to see that. We've now got that distance is 18 millimeter from that inside face. Next, we can go ahead and edit this cross section here, or we can actually add another feature to this. In our case, IronCAD can use a mixture of features, so we can actually use any of these shapes inside of here. Like for example, we're going to add a stock and edit this cross section to do that, or we can actually even go back to our regular shapes. And in this case, we can add a cylinder on here to this guy, and we can just flip that to the opposite direction, align that to here, and snap it to there. So we can mix these features here to build our sheet metal geometry. And last, we have to add a cut through here, which has got a diameter on that guy of 25 millimeters in there. So that gives us our shape for that flange there, or a little pop-up. Last, there are some fillets on these edges here. So we can use our blend edge command, or we can actually use one of the sheet metal tools. So if you go to the sheet metal ribbon bar, there's a corner break tool here, and we can go ahead and select our part. And it's going to show you which ones it's doing. We want 8 millimeters for that, so we know we want those edges done, but we don't want these up here, so we're just doing an exception. We don't want this one, this vertical edge there. We'll go ahead and hit OK to create that. So that will give us our 8 millimeter blends on all the sharp edges in this case. So that's basically our model that we have to build for this example. That's everything that needs to be created. So let's go into our properties, and we can set the mass density. In this case is 7,800 for that, and that should give us a 665 mass for the grams. So that's an example of how to build this in IronCAD sheet metal. And again, this is all pretty much all drag and drop and handle based designs here. We just did some cross-section edits for some of these areas up here and our cutout there at the bottom. So that's one example way how you can do this in IronCAD. Hopefully you enjoyed the video.